Good morning, everyone. Before you is a copy of the FOIA request, the infamous FOIA request that I was explaining to you guys in the Zoom call from March 15th that we had. It was about 6 hours long. I really enjoyed myself, but I wanted to give you a word template of the document so that you can see. Now, this FOIA request was related to a client that I'm assisting, and this client got about 20 grand taken out of their private bank account from Navy, not from Navy Federal, from the Attorney General in DC. Okay, and DC did not give a reason. They didn't give a warrant. There was no court order. There was no, what is it called? A warrant, a subpoena. None of those things existed. Okay, and so what I decided to do for the client is I did a FOIA request to the Attorney General's office, and I'm going to read it to you, okay? The FOIA request says U.S. federal person Jane Mary Doe. Obviously, this is an example. So you would write your name first, middle, last, and then you would write your name the way that it is written on your driver's license. If you look at your driver's license, maybe you haven't noticed, but your name is written backwards. Okay, so you're going to put both variations of your name on the FOIA. So Jane Mary Doe slash Doe Jane Mary. Okay. The next line says taxpayer. That should say TAX. That's spelled wrong. Okay, I'll go back and fix it later. Don't worry. It should say taxpayer, but this V is obviously a typo. Taxpayer identification slash decedent social security number. Okay. And so what you're doing is you're trying to identify that the Attorney General's office is in reality holding two accounts in your name, okay? So they're holding one account that you can see, okay? And then they're holding one account that's considered off ledger that you can't see. And that is the account that has your name written backwards. Okay, so that those are the records we're specifically wanting to be sure that we've covered our the entire parameter. Okay, we want to give both variations of the name, and then we provide the social security number that is being used for both entities. Now, something you need to know is that the reason some of these companies hold two accounts in your name is not for a good reason. Some of them do it to money launder. And how they money launder is, well, if you go to a particular company or maybe the attorney general, you believe that these are actual courts. Okay, you're not aware that these courts that you think are Article 3 courts are actually territorial, meaning they get to make up their own rules. These rules are not consistent with the Constitution. You have no obligation to participate in it, but they have the right, okay, to do business. They have the right to be territorial. And so, unbeknownst to individuals like, people from the public, they go into these places of business and they contract with these courts, and then they find themselves in like a precarious situation where you're not really getting help. You're not really getting justice, okay? It seems like, the judge is being unfair. There's no jury present, okay? Like, you feel very, like, restricted in some of these courts that posture as if they're Article 3 courts. And you can easily tell that you're not in an Article 3 court simply by the way you're being treated, okay? And so, what these individuals will do is that since the public is in bankruptcy, right, you can't just have all this money moving around in the public when the rules say that, hey, there's bankruptcy in the public, okay? Meaning there's no money, okay? So, if you're transacting in the public and then all of this money just comes out of nowhere, it's going to get taxed to death, okay, because of the various violations of bankruptcy, banking rules, okay, IRS rules. Many rules have been violated, okay, in the process of doing business in the public. And so, what these individuals will do is that they will open what's called a bankruptcy estate in your identity. And a bankruptcy estate is an account, okay, that is chartered or opened out in a U.S. territory. It's a territory like Guam or Puerto Rico or the Virgin Islands. And the purpose for this, I'm sorry guys, the purpose for this is that in U.S. states, most people don't know this either, U.S. states and territories do not operate the same. Territories are not subject to all of the U.S. code. Okay, territories have their own legal framework, meaning they can make up their own rules. The same is true for tax laws and rules and obligations. So, in the mainland United States, like Texas, California, Illinois, in the mainland United States, the tax rules are set by the IRS. Okay, but in territories, the tax rules and the legal framework is totally up to the individual who controls the account. Okay, you get to decide how this account can be taxed or what rules that does this account have to follow. So individuals that are like money laundering or engaging in behaviors that they're not supposed to do, typically they'll open an account and they'll charter that account. Um, or just don't get confused with charter. Charter just means open. Okay, we're just gonna say open. We're gonna replace charter with open an account in a U.S. territory because I think charter will bring confusion like to regular people. And so that's what they do. And so they open this bankruptcy account in a territory that you don't know about. And then they accuse you of owing them all this money, right? Like, hey, you owe me this money. You owe me this money. You owe a debt. And if you don't pay me, I'm going to hurt you. Okay. I'm going to do something to you, which is repugnant to the United States Constitution. Okay. And so what they do is like they force you into making these payments to them, but they can't justify why they're receiving these payments in a bankruptcy. Okay. And so what they do is that they open a bankruptcy case in your name and then they send it out into a territory where U.S. codes and other IRS rules and regulations does not apply to that account, but they know the account belongs to you because it's in your name and it's written in your name. It's written backwards. Okay, so Doe Jane Mary is how your name would be written on that bankruptcy estate. And so they send all of your money into that bankruptcy estate. And after a certain amount of time, you'll forget about it because not even forget about it, you never even knew it existed. Okay. And what the person that does know it exists, what they'll do is that they'll claim it as abandoned funds because you had no idea that it existed. So all of your labor, all of your hard work, okay, went into an account that someone else got to benefit and profit from, which is unfair. And so now that with the FOIA request, okay, you can request transparency. You can request any documents, any accounts that you're holding, because in order for this company to continue asking you for payments in a bankruptcy, it means that some other legal and tax framework exists in your case. And that is the information you're wanting them to be transparent about. So the FOIA request says this, okay? There is a note. It says, see United States Department of Treasury slash Internal Revenue Service, Form 2848, Power of Attorney and Declaration of Representative, and Form 56, Notice Concerning Fiduciary Agent, sent, you're going to enter the date that you sent it, and United States Postal Certified Mail Number. That's just an example, okay? And so it says, Dear FOIA Officer, pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act, 5 USC 552, We are requesting access to and copies of all records related to the unauthorized withdrawal of funds from our personal bank account at Navy Federal Credit Union by an enforcement agency at the District of Columbia Attorney General's Office. Specifically, we are seeking information regarding the following. I didn't know so many people banked with Navy Federal. Details of the transaction. All records included but not limited to transaction logs, authorization documents, and communications related to the withdrawal of funds from our personal bank account. Okay, so with FOIA requests, when you send FOIAs, you want to avoid asking open ended questions. I know it's very tempting, like you want to ask the agency, like, why did you take a specific action? But they're not required to answer those questions. The FOIA request is simply a way to request documents or information, okay? So don't do what I did. I think at some point I kind of lost the plot as I was making this FOIA request for the client, and I just started to flat out ask some questions, okay? But I did get some very good results from this that I'm going to share with you guys in just a moment, okay? It says, all right, so number two, authorization and justification of any documents or records that provide the legal basis, authorization, or justification for the withdrawals of funds. Okay. Number three is internal communications. All internal communications, including emails, memos, and meeting notes related to the decision to withdraw funds from our account. When I say the word our, I'm talking about the entity, okay? Because the taxpayer and the decedent. Okay, so in the public, I prefer to use words instead of saying I or me. I say we, us, or our, okay? Because we're talking about entities here. We're not talking about a single person, and I want to refrain from causing that type of confusion. So when you say I, me, my, I believe, it's just my belief. I could be wrong, but you don't have to agree with me on that. I believe that that points directly to you, your physical body, as opposed to your person or entity that is being inappropriately used. Okay, so that's my justification for that. Okay, so it says, all right, investigative reports. Any investigative reports or findings related to the withdrawal of funds from our account. The next is beneficial ownership information. We are requesting detailed beneficial ownership information. BOI is short for beneficial ownership information for Doe Jane Mary. Specifically, we need the full legal names of all beneficial owners, dates of births of all beneficial owners, current residential addresses of all beneficial owners, unique identifying numbers, social security number, passport for each beneficial owner, and the nature and extent of each individual's ownership or control, including the percentage of ownership held by each beneficial owner. Okay, so what this means is that that bankruptcy estate that you don't know about, okay, is being traded and exchanged, okay, for whatever the individuals decide on. So, like, if you have a mortgage, for example, your mortgage can be transferred to another company at any time, and now that company will begin to start collecting from you. This is evidence of a beneficial owner, okay? And FinCEN, which is the Financial Crimes Network, it is a department within the United States Department of Treasury. FinCEN is looking to curtail ambiguous legal and tax structures, okay? And what that means is that they are trying to prevent money laundering, terrorism, extortion, okay? If you think about it, if someone is threatening to like take your house, okay, and they're threatening you, they're extorting you, they're coercing you, okay, these are the entities that FinCEN wants to know about. And the way that we notify FinCEN is through a beneficial ownership report. And in this BOI report, what you're telling FinCEN is that, hey, I'm an unregistered entity, okay? I'm not even doing business. And so this company over here, let's call them ABC LLC, for example. This company, ABC LLC, is just using my identity, okay, without my consent. I've refused. I've said no. Okay, and they don't listen to me. They don't respect me. They misuse my information in any way that they want. And I do believe this is indicative of some sort of crime, okay, because they're forcing me to act in a particular way while they use my identity, and I have no idea what they are doing. If there are accounts that I'm unaware of in my name or in my identity, okay? And so this is what FinCEN wants to know. And so this is why I have been educating you guys and bringing certain words to you guys that you may have not known before or thought of, so that it helps put the picture together and you better understand what it is you need to do if you find yourself in one of these situations. So that's what a beneficial ownership report is. And so, like, for example, if it's a mortgage or if it's a car loan, the beneficial owner would, at the time, like, temporarily it would be the company, but the beneficial owner would be some sort of investor, okay, that's doing business with the company. We don't know the identity of this investor, okay? We don't know who they are, and that's why we're asking, because they have significant control over us in our life, and we don't think that it's fair. So we want to identify this individual, and we want to identify the accounts that they're opening in our names and in our identities, okay? All right, we want bonding information. Bonding information, we are requesting detailed bonding information for the District of Columbia Attorney General. Specifically, we need the following. We need the full legal name of the Attorney General, the bonding company or surety providing the bond. Now, you know what I thought about in reading this question? That these surety bonds that um, these insurance companies give to, like, public servants are a farce, and I'm going to tell you why. Because there's no money in the public. So if a public servant is walking around with a $500,000 bond, this is a farce. Like, this, you're not bonded through this company. You're bonded through me. That's the bond. The bond is us. You're bonded through us. It's not these bonding companies that, like, when they give you, oh, I'm insured by here, I'm insured here, this is my insurance. That's not real. It's a farce, and actually it could be evidence of bankruptcy fraud. Okay, it could be evidence of bankruptcy fraud because where there's no money in the public, and so you guaranteeing that, oh, I'm gonna pay for something that someone in the public does to cause harm or negligence. It just seems highly unlikely and misleading, okay, because you're bankrupt, and so is the servant. All right. Uh, Okay, so the bond number and amount, the effective dates of the bond, any conditions or limitations associated with the bond. Provide this information to the above U.S. federal person by way of its duly authorized representative, Jane Mary Doe, sui juris de jure improper person. Okay, I'm not going to tell you what that is. If you don't know, you have a little bit of homework now. I want you to look up what is sui juris de jure improper person. This information is essential for our records and to ensure compliance with relevant regulations. We believe that the unauthorized withdrawal of funds from our personal bank account constitutes identity theft, which is a serious matter requiring transparency and accountability. The public interest in understanding the actions taken by the enforcement agency outweighs any potential harm for disclosure. Therefore, we request that any applicable exemptions be waived in this case. If our request is denied in whole or in part, please provide a detailed explanation of the reason for the denial along with exceptions applied. Due to the serious concerns of identity theft, uh, oh, this looks like a typo. Due to some serious concerns of identity theft, thank you for. Okay, that should be a period there. So, thank you for your time. Thank you for your prompt attention to this request. We look forward to your response within the statutory time frame. Signed, Jane M. Doe, and obviously that's to protect the identity my of my client. Okay, and so you guys know that. Let me get it for you. So the District of Columbia reached out to my client, and it's very interesting what they said. Okay. Now, this is the response received from the District of Columbia. I never knew that they office of the Chief Financial Officer, so this office is different from any office I've ever seen within a government agency, but whatever. And so I've redacted the client's private information. Let's see. How do I make this smaller? So you got, there we go. Make it a bit smaller because the words are the child, not the child support, the Attorney General's office simply took the words they copied and pasted the FOIA request that I just read to you guys. They copied and pasted it into this letter. Now, if you scroll down a little bit further, remember at the beginning I was telling you that they are holding what's called a bankruptcy estate. The office gave us the bankruptcy estate. So this is my client's name. They have identified the bankruptcy estate. Okay. Also, in the FOIA request, okay, we requested any applicable exemptions. I wonder if that's improper to say that. Therefore, we request any applicable exemptions be waived in this case. But either way, I'm going to revisit that sentence because I wonder, I'm torn in my feeling about this. We request that any applicable exemptions be waived in this case. But anyway, it was enough to scare them into giving us the estate. They gave it to us. Here it is. And any waiver request, yes, bankruptcy, okay. Um, Fee waiver, yes, so no fees are due. No money can be taken because they've identified that yes, bankruptcy exists and there is an exemption. There is an automatic stay. You know that when bankruptcy exists, which everybody is in bankruptcy, if you have a public account, it's in bankruptcy. Everyone is in bankruptcy. So what that means is that you have a stay. Okay, you have an automatic stay. No debts can be collected during that time. Okay, so if you're not familiar with bankruptcy, I highly urge you to start to expose yourself to bankruptcy rules and codes, and also start playing Monopoly with your family. Do family night. Start playing Monopoly so you can understand the concept. Okay, but yeah, so I wanted to share this with you guys. If you were not present in the Zoom, it was epic. It was about 6 hours by the time I was done. Like now my throat is still like it's kind of like scratchy, sort of hurts a little bit, and I had a full on like headache. Not because it was a bad meeting, but because I was so excited and we were so engaged that I don't know. I think I just overdid it. Okay. And so by the time I was done, if y'all do y'all remember Pokemon? Do y'all remember Psyduck? I felt like Psyduck after the fact. So I had to go lay down and kind of take me a break. But I wanted to share with you guys, you have a bankruptcy estate, absolutely. So if it's a utility account, if it's a credit card account, if it's it doesn't matter, child support, it does not matter the form of the account. It does not matter if it's a mortgage account. It doesn't matter, okay? They have a bankruptcy estate in your name, and the fact that they have this bankruptcy estate, this bankruptcy account in your name, it qualifies you for an automatic stay. You are not liable for all debt collection must cease. Okay. And so you want to reach out to either the appropriate federal agency, or you want to contact the company directly and request that they honor the automatic stay due to bankruptcy so that all debts on that account will be discharged. If they fail to comply, you're going to proceed to contact federal regulators, okay? Do Foia requests to whatever agency is responsible for regulating. So, this is very simple. If you contact your bank, let's say your bank is trying to collect from you, collect money from you, and say you owe them all this money or these fees, okay? And you contact your bank and you say, hey, bank, you have not been totally transparent with me. There is a bankruptcy estate that exists. The name of the estate is, and you give them that last name, Doe Jane Mary. Uh, Taxpayer identification number, and you give them the social security number, okay? This entity is a bankruptcy estate, and under the bankruptcy rules, I am entitled to an automatic stay. Not I, we. We are entitled to an automatic stay. You, okay, being the bank or the mortgage company or whoever you're talking to, you cannot collect, okay, in this on this account, because you would be violating bankruptcy. And so if they ignore you, if they say, you don't know what you're talking about, you must have heard some conspiracy theory girl, some sovereign citizen, a mess, some sovereign citizen told you that, that is a lie. They don't know what they're talking about. That's okay. Don't argue. You go to the bankruptcy court and you submit a Foia request to the bankruptcy court, and the records that you are specifically looking for from the company that is not complying with you is all records related to bankruptcy. You understand? All records related to bankruptcy, and you want to expand the search, okay? Be specific that these records may not be found in mainland United States. They might be in a U.S. territory.